Excuse me, Sajani. Still, the fly is there, right?
Yes, it's still there.
Okay, thank you.
The Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Words of Inspiration. Today, the world is incredibly fast moving, and we as the youth find it difficult to keep up. And that is why Words of Inspiration brings closer to you amazing personalities to inspire and motivate us to become successful. Today, we have yet another amazing personality with us. Let me introduce him to you. He is the founder, CEO, master trainer at Boston Negotiation Group, which is a group that is entirely dedicated to improve negotiation, communication, and leadership skills of corporate executives and entrepreneurs. He has successfully secured hundreds of international deals during his negotiation career, expanding over 25 years with hands-on experience over 30 countries in Europe, Asia Pacific, and Middle East. He was former General Manager Sales and Marketing of Maersk Line Sri Lanka and former Regional Manager for Asia Pacific and Middle East of Jacobs Envy Belgium. He sharpened negotiation skills at Negotiation Leadership Program at Harvard Law School, Cambridge, USA. He earned his MBA from Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jawaganapura. He has a postgraduate diploma in marketing and diploma in business management from University of Colombo. He is a competent leadership coach certified by Master Coach, London, United Kingdom. He is a writer, keynote speaker, and a frequent contributor of LinkedIn articles on the subjects of negotiation, communication, and leadership development. He is a visiting lecturer for MBA program at Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Jawaganapura. And most of all, he is an advanced communicator and dual member of FTZ Toastmasters and Pinnacle Advanced Toastmasters as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Words of Inspiration, Mr. Tissa Dissanayake. Mr. Tissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sajani, inviting me for this important discussion.
Thank you very much, sir. Going through this amazing speaker profile of yours, we know that it's not easy to gain these credentials. So tell us, how did your childhood motivate and inspire you to become who you are today?
Well, Sajani, it's my personal belief that any motivation to do something, achieve anything in life should come within. The motivation from my childhood to be successful in life came within. I was inspired from the others, the successful people around me, but the majority of the drive that who I am today and what I am today to reach here came within. I believe this is the, if anyone has a drive within to achieve something, to be successful in life, to reach the happiness, it has to come within. It's my nature, and I believe it's an easy way to be a successful person.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa. So you did mention about having a drive in your life. So do you believe it's important to have a dream and an ambition when you're younger, when it comes to becoming successful in the future?
Sajani, I believe I'm confident that my story could be a bit different to some of you or some of the others. There are different school of thoughts, thinking. People say I have witnessed Many advise to have a bigger dream to drive the success, to achieve some. In my life, the motivation drive didn't come through the dreams, having a bigger dreams. The drive in my life, the motivation to success, achieve something, drive my life forward, came with the desperation. It was not the dream that drive me forward, but it was the desperation that drive me forward in my life, especially at the early part of childhood, in my childhood. If I give you the slice of my life, in my family, my father was the daily income earner, and my mother was full-time housewife, and both of them had 6 children. I was the eldest. And you could imagine more than 50 years ago, the situation in that environment. It was not easy. In fact, it was difficult and hard. Dreams, well, I don't know which dreams we had. We were struggling day by day. Fortunately, my father was a very courageous person, and he tried to support the family as much as he could, and mother supported as well. The life was hard. The achieve something, get out of that difficult situation was the desperation. We did not have the dreams. We were having a tough time. We were trying to find out the way to have a good sleep. That was the situation. So desperation, the move to get out of that difficult situation, was the drive and the motivation in my life. Well, if you ask me whether I did not have the dreams like to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, yes, of course. As any child, I also had the dream, but it was not the dominant factor in my life. The dominant factor was the desperation. What is needed to get out of this situation? It was a desperation and drive to minimize the pain than having a bigger dream to achieve. I believe that I'm not alone, and there are thousands, if not millions of youngsters, young generation are going through the same, especially in Sri Lanka and Asian context. And when I share this story, I'm pretty sure you can relate it to your life as well.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing that very emotional story with us, because I believe majority of the population is facing the same crisis, the same issue. And thank you for bringing that here into this discussion, because I believe it's a very timely topic with the present situation as well people are facing. So speaking of your very important topic, which is negotiation, communication, and leadership, 3 words that are essential for today's life, essential to make tomorrow successful. So what really inspired you to enhance the society on the subjects of communication, negotiation, and leadership?
Sajani, I was privileged to work for one of the world-class organization. In fact, I was working for the #1 player in the world, in shipping and logistics. I worked there for 16 years. And then I had an international break for 10 years working as a regional manager for Asia Pacific and Middle East. Managing, traveling, at least half of the month I was out of Sri Lanka and meeting institutional, professional buyers, negotiators, and negotiating with them for international deals. 10 years I had that career, and 16 years I had the international shipping and logistic career. I believe I was privileged to get into that type of environment to have my professional experience. At the early part of anyone's career, the satisfaction, fulfillment comes will be based on what you get. What you get from by working, by doing a career, by working for someone or working for oneself. That's pretty normal. Do you feel the same way? Well, I felt that way. But when you walk through your life, past the middle of your career and the life cycle, you realized the satisfaction, the fulfillment, happiness doesn't come or does not rest solely on what you get. And late in life, it shifts towards the what you give to the society. So I believe I was privileged to work for world-class organizations, and I had a wealth of knowledge on international negotiations. Then I was thinking to myself, well, I was privileged enough to go through this experience. I have a lot more success stories. I knew what would the world-class organization do to make their organization drive forward at highly successful level. Now imagine if I drop dead. What would happen to those experiences? It will disappear with my ashes. One day I had this light bulb moment to talk to myself, my inner feelings. Tissa, what if you drop dead? And what are you going to do with that experience, that know-how, that technology, that techniques? Are you not sharing it with others? That gives a better happiness. That is when I decided to share my experience rather than keep it for myself and die with it. From that point onwards, it's not an easy journey. It was not a year or two. I undertook over 10 years journey, structurally understanding the negotiation, learning with the world best class practices, what the gurus in the world say about, did about, preach about, or share about the international negotiation, what the world-class best practices, because I was able to learn and put it to practice immediately. That privilege I had. That is where I wanted to be a lecturer or teacher. That is the best place to share your knowledge, share your experience, enrich others. That is when I developed my own model called House of Negotiation. I developed my own model in negotiation and started sharing, especially with the university students and the business community, entrepreneurs. It took over 10, 15 years. And in fact, the sharings were validated over 25, 30 years of my professional career with the hands-on experience. And today, I'm happier than ever because now is the phase in my life that I keep on sharing, and it gives me more happiness than getting getting some rewards in monetary terms.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful answer. I believe you're very happy and you're very proud of what you're doing, and we are honored to have you today because of the service that you're doing to the youth today. Because I believe negotiation is really essential for the youth today, because in the society, how to do this in communication. So we have an interesting question from one of the members of our audience, and they want to know, sir, is effective communication and negotiation the same thing?
Good question. Let me answer the both with a one word. Then you decide whether it's the same or not. Professor William Ury, a co-founder of Harvard Negotiation and Leadership Program, and who wrote a seminal book, Get Into Yes. And he's the guru, and he is my teacher as well. And he said, negotiation is an act of influence. Negotiation is an act of influence. Let me take you back to the communication. What is communication? Of course, there are one-to-one communication and then one-to-many communication. But communication is also an act of influence. You communicate to influence, inform, persuade, or inspire your audience. Or even when it is one-to-one, interpersonal or public speaking, and it associated with the act of influence. So communication and the negotiation is sharing the same word, influence. You decide whether it's the same or not. It's the two sides of the same coin. Let me put it that way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering that question. I believe the member in the audience who asked it is now going to research on these two topics and find the answer. Thank you very much for enlightening them and giving them a very clear answer on that question. And we have another interesting question. Sir, how important is negotiation when you're working in an office?
Well, Sajani, there's a peculiar characteristics given to the word negotiation. The moment the word negotiation is heard by someone, what comes to their mind is negotiation between America and China, Trump and Xi Jinping, Israelis and Palestinians, Sri Lankan government and LTT, and negotiation between region to region, government to government, organization to organization, blue chip cooperation to cooperation. And it generally people has assigned a very heavy weightage on the word negotiation. In fact, it need not to be. We negotiate from the moment we are born to this world until the moment we are gone from this world. We negotiate from the moment we get out of the bed in the morning until we get onto the bed in the evening. Negotiation cannot be avoided. We negotiate every moment in life. Especially, let me ask you, the audience, a question. In your opinion, where do you think you negotiate more? Do you negotiate in your personal life more or your professional life more? Take a 5 seconds and think about it. In general, you negotiate more in your personal life. You negotiate with your partner, your mother, father, your brothers, sisters, the people around your life, at home. You're with your friends, with the society, day in, day out, every day, for slightest things to a bigger thing. And in the meantime, you negotiate in your professional life. You negotiate with your customer, client, your boss, your subordinate, your peers, buyer, seller. We do negotiate more in personal life. And of course, at times we negotiate heavily on professional life. So negotiation is around you 360 degrees. And you cannot avoid or evade. This is why I tell my audience, my students, if you cannot avoid it, why not learn how to do that? So professional life negotiation is important because that is where, if you are working for an organization, if you are an employee working for an employer, a company, you need to know how to do the professional negotiation. When you meet next time the procurement team, when you meet the buyer or seller, when you sit down with your negotiating counterparts for the service agreement, there is a world-class best practices. And if you follow, your success rate goes up. So you negotiate in both personal and professional life, and you go to manage both. And the moment you manage both, you don't have to learn it specifically, and you can work it as it comes, as you feel. But then you become a rookie negotiator, average one. Do you want to be average negotiator for rest of your life? Or do you want to improve it and become great one? The choice is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tessa. Speaking of all of these important facts that you've said, I believe the audience has many things to gain from what you're saying, your answers. And me sitting here, I also am getting very inspired, and I believe words of inspiration are coming from you to us. So thank you very much. And we have another interesting question. The audience seems to be very interested. They want to know what is a leadership coach? What is a leadership coach? And as a leadership coach, what are the characteristics that you see as a good leader?
Well, let me take the word that I shared to describe the negotiation and communication. To me, this is my opinion, perhaps the opinion of some of the experts. Leadership is all about influence. It has nothing to do with the position or your title. You can be a very junior person, a school child or school children, a student, but still can be a leader. And I'm pretty sure the road actors and Toastmasters, Gavel Club members are leaders in their schools, in their universities. For me, leadership is the act of influence. That's
Thank
the
you
way
very
I.
much. Yes, and they want to know what are the characteristics of a good leader.
Well, characteristics is a good leader. One cannot express in it. It's a combination assortment of characteristics. Some people refer. There are a lot of ways to get the leadership, with the authority, with the charismatic, with your rewarding power. But for me, and if you can find a different way of influencing people, and that you have the characters, you have the skills and the attitude, ability to be a leader. Now, for instance, let me take two things. One is, first, your ability to communicate. Leader is the one who can communicate properly. Now, have you ever heard this? The very famous statement say, walk in the talk or talk in the walk. And when leadership people try to describe these phrases comes, these are clutch phrases that everyone uses very loosely. Now, for instance, talk in the talk. Leader must be able to talk the talk. Talk in the talk means communication. Leader must be able to communicate the idea to the rest. If you are unable to communicate, and that person cannot be an effective leader. Let me put it that way. Leadership is a continuum, and there is a very minimal influence, and there are people with a maximum influence. So one can be in anywhere in the continuum. If you want to be effective person, you have to talk the talk. That means communication. Then you have to walk the walk. Walk the walk means you are an executioner. That means you do. And you know how to get them through the process. Walk in the walk. The other one is walk in the talk. Not only you communicate, and you also do it and show that. For me, leader is the person who always willing to get into the uncomfortable area and who is willing to expand the area of influence, expand and try to do new things and take the audience with them. For instance, leader must be, for me, able to visualize and presentiment, should have the presentiment and imagine much more deeper and futuristic than the other. And it is not about doing what you love or love what you do. Have you ever heard this phrase, do what you love what you do? Well, if you do that, you will be an average person. Because doing what you love and loving what you do is you become a good. But if you want to be a great, you have to find out what you should do, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Let me repeat. If you do what you love and if you love what you do, you are good. You are good at what you are doing. But doesn't make you a great leader. It doesn't make you extraordinary or excellent leader. To get there, you have to do what you should do, even if it makes uncomfortable. This is where the leadership comes. The rest cannot imagine why certain leaders are taking that step. But leader know, even if the audience is unable to see that, view that, apprehend that, and even has a little bit of reluctance, he or she knows that if we walk through this pathway, although it will make everyone uncomfortable, it could give an amazing, extraordinary, exponential result. So leader is the one who takes the risk, but then leader should earn the trust, and leader also should have empathy. Sajani, it's days of discussion about the leadership, which has, I believe it will have eternal or continuous discussion on the different thinking of leadership. But it's a good subject to touch in with the young generations of yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Desai. I believe that was a very elaborate, very inspiring description and explanation on how valuable leadership is and how difficult it is to actually take up the challenge of leadership. And I also agree with your perspective now, sir. If you say, if you do what you love and love they say, in order to challenge yourself, you need to step out of it. Thank you for mentioning that to our audience, because I believe that's a very important message that the youth today needs to learn, because most of them stick to their comfort zones. And also you mentioned, when you mentioned leaders, Gaviliers, and you also mentioned Toastmasters. Now, you are a member of 2 Toastmasters clubs. As we have many Gaviliers here who have ambitions to join Toastmasters, can you share with us your story on how you joined Toastmasters International?
Well, Sajani, it's a again little bit extraordinary story. I kept on refusing to join Toastmasters. Do you know why? Because I had the ego, or I was overconfidence, believing that I knew I can handle my communication. Because I was the presenter, I was the trainer, I made presentation on behalf of the organization that I worked all over the Asia Pacific and Middle East region. I was articulative, expressive, and communicative. When a friend of mine who was a Toastmaster in 2006 invited me to join Toastmasters, I refused. Simply because I believe I knew how to communicate. Do you have the same feeling, my dear audience? I'm pretty sure some of you will have the same feeling. Yeah, I know how to communicate. Why should I do that? Well, I was that egoistic person. I kept on refusing till 2014, end of 2014. I saw the district champions, the world champions, but they didn't impress me. They didn't inspire me. One day, a friend of mine invited for me to attend a Toastmaster meeting. In fact, I must mention, it was a distinguished Toastmaster, Sudhash Lienenge, who almost inspired and pushed me to attend one of those Toastmaster meetings in Katunayake. At that time, I was working for Katunayake. I went with my big head, heavy head on my shoulders, believing, having, big, high ego, and sat on the last seat of the auditorium. And there I saw 2 gentlemen. Both of them are senior professionals. One was the CEO, the other one was the chief accountant. In 2 important organizations, Free Trade Zone Katunayake. And they had the difficulty of communicating. They were struggling in language, pronunciation, grammar, and expressions. Yet they came forward and trying to talk and communicate and improve themselves. That was the not light bulb moment, and that was the moment I had this tongue. I put a huge knock on my head after leaving that auditorium. Not physical knock, metaphorically I did this. I asked the question, Tissa, look at them. They were senior professionals. They knew that they had the problem and they were struggling. They are doing everything to improve their communication skills. You can speak reasonably well. What have you done to improve your communication all these years? I felt small, ashamed. I saw my ego right on top of my palms. It was when the moment the ego was taken away, it was my conscience talking to me. I told myself, Tissa, you wasted years of opportunity to improve yourself. Next meeting, I was a member of that club. And that journey now, it's 5.5 years old. I couldn't satisfied with being a member of one club, so I became a member of 2 clubs. Having more stage time, ever since I realized I only knew this much. I mean, that's the moment when I joined Toastmasters. I came to realization my knowledge in public speaking was this tiny. And there's a huge area to learn. Well, Toastmasters is the place where you can fail safe. It's the ecosystem to fail and learn the lesson and improve. And I'm happy and a proud member of that fraternity. And my journey will not end with Toastmasters until the day I leave this planet. And that is the determination I have. And that is the yearning desire that I knew that Toastmasters could improve me up until that moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa, for sharing that very wonderful story of how you got into Toastmasters. And I believe all of us have that same scenario. We are confident about ourselves, and then we put ourselves out there and we realize how little do we know.
Absolutely.
How you overcame through that. And I believe the students who are listening in too are getting inspired. So as someone who has worked not only with local authorities, but also with international communities, what do you think, what is the biggest difference what is the biggest personality change that you have to make when you're dealing with international communities than working with the local authorities?
Well, Sajani, this is I'm trying, now I will share the universal truth, the basic facts in life, but most of us often forget or do not focus. My philosophy in life is, do not try to control others. Well, when I was young, when I was energetic, when I was a kid, when I had the authority in big blue chip corporations, I believe I had the control of everything. I could control many things. Well, some people will come to realization early in their life, but it was very late for me. Now I know I cannot even control the remote control in my home. That's the plain truth. So what is the option that you have if you cannot control the rest? Control your response. Control your feelings. Control your response and the reply to things that are happening. But take initiative. That's fine. I'm not saying to stay lay back. What I'm advising is try to find a way that you could adjust yourself. It doesn't mean you have to be nice for everyone, you have to listen or say yes to everything. No, I'm not saying that. But try to understand the emotions first within you and the emotions of others. This is emotional intelligence that Daniel Goleman who wrote the seminal book of why EQ is much more important than IQ, that say about it. Whether you work for Sri Lankan context, whether you work within the country and meet the people who is familiar with the same culture, same language, same shared values, or whether you go outside. I have hundreds of examples that I share in my negotiation master classes with the students, MBA students, and the corporate sector. What culture differences that exist in business regime, business environment, when you are dealing with the other people with the different countries, different cultures, and how to manage, navigate all those landmines and the pitfalls. And simple thing is to don't try to control, expect the surprises, try to adapt if possible. You don't have to adapt, give up everything in your life. Expect the surprises, try to understand the others. What is the shared interest, why they do that? And preparation is important. Each time that you go to a different culture, to talk with the different people, different countries, get yourself prepared. If you fail to prepare to fail. And if you prepare and your game, your negotiation, whether it's a communication for the business or personal reasons, your 70% success is assured. But if you fail to prepare, wait for unexpected surprises.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa, for that wonderful answer. That was a can get out of your explanation. So thank you very much for that. And we have another interesting question, and this is also based on leadership, and it's been sent to me by one of our Gaviliers. And they're inquiring, sir, is it true that a true leader must be a born leader?
This is the age-old discussion whether leaders are born or made. Well, I mean, you got to be born as a human being. Without a human being, if you must be in the presence in this universe. Then only you become a human being first, and the leader second. Let me come to this discussion, the leadership discussion, in different way. For me, there is no clear cut, black and white, one is a leader or not leader. And there's no sharp division. For me, it's a continuum. Even in the leadership, there are different levels of leadership. People interpret in different way. For me, what I suggest is, everyone has a leadership qualities. Let me put it this way. Let me make it very simple. You all are leaders. My dear audience, you all are leaders. It's only few of you will discover its maximum potential. Do you want to die one day, go from this world, not realizing your leadership potential, or be an average person? Or do you want to improve your leadership skills, which is already in you? Do you wish to rediscover them and do a greater good to the world and to yourself, and live this universe as a great leader, amazing human being? And choice is yours. Whether you keep those latent leadership qualities for yourself and lead an average life, or do you want to improve them and lead a great life? For me, everyone is a leader, but only few were able to rediscover those qualities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa. I believe you motivated the audience to think more on what qualities they possess and to improve them. Thank you very much for that motivation that you gave to them. And Now you are not only are you a professional who's working with negotiation, communication, and all. You're also a trainer, and I believe as a trainer you work with the youth like us a lot. And that the youth today needs to develop.
Sorry, Sajini, I missed a couple of seconds due to the line quality.
Yes.
Will you please repeat?
Yes. What are some traits that you believe that the youth today needs to develop?
Well, I don't know what the management text talk as traits, but I will share with you the process and the steps that you need to develop themselves. First thing is you have to have the desire and intention within. Start within. It has to be inner fire, inner burning. Have you ever heard the statement, one can take the horse to the water, but 50 cannot make it drink? What's the characteristics of the horse inside you? Do you want even a single person to take you to the water, or are you ready to drink by yourself? The only trait or skill or characteristics, or put any name onto it, that I request you to have is your own desire to improve yourself. Improve yourself, whatever the level, whatever the skills. Could it be communication skills? Could it be technical IT skills? Could it be even music, drama, dance, science, commerce, sports, whatever it is? Please start firing it within. It's easy to say than done. So if you can do that, rekindle the smoldering embers which is in you to achieve whatever the field that you want to excel. That quality will drive you forward. You will find a ways and means to get there. It has to come within. No one else in the world will be able to hold your hand and take you there. Well, sometimes people could give you the guidance, direction, a little bit of money, advice, technology, whatever it is. But it is you who should take it within. If it doesn't come within, doesn't matter the rest of the factors. Or no traits will help you.
Thank you very much for promoting how you should understand your capabilities and promote them and move forward. Thank you very much for motivating the youth, Mr. Tissa, because I believe most people, they expect someone else to do things for them. They expect someone to take your hand and lead you up the staircase, but that is not the reality. And thank you for bringing that reality today to this discussion, because we rarely hear this being said and being discussed. So we have another interesting question from one of the members of the audience, and they want to know, since you are a writer as well, they want to know, can you explain some techniques used in writing to grab the reader's attention?
Well, let me say, I am not a avid or a very deep writer. I would like to write, but I am not a regular writer, because I believe there are many ways. Good old days, you wrote in Valley Pillar, and that was the human beings, that was very temporary, and then we invented the papers, pen, and we kept on producing books. That's the only one way of sharing the knowledge. Do you know what was the basis or the medium that our ancestors shared? It was storytelling. The writing is a way of sharing knowledge or your experience. Previously, it's a word of mouth, storytelling. Now you have visuals, videos, YouTube medium. So there are ways to do that. Whatever the way, remember one thing when you write. Whatever you write or produce in social media or any other media, whether you write a book or article, or whether you produce a video or visual medium, remember that production is not about you. Even if you speak as a speaker, communicator, your speech, your article, your video is not about you. It is not about your knowledge. The prime or core principle of any writer, speaker, or video producer is to influence, persuade, inspire your readers or audience. That must be the focal point of any delivery. Whether you take through the pen or your mouth or use the visual media. If you can focus them, your prime focus should be, how can I change the thinking or feeling of the audience? Or how do I inspire or persuade someone to do something, take some actions, call to an action? That is the starting point of any writing. How do you do that? Each time that you write a sentence, you should write it not in your perspective. You have to write in the perspective of the reader or viewer. Some writers will not agree on this, but this is my belief and this is my experience. Every sentence has to be, the audience or reader must be the focal point of any sentence that you write. There are techniques that you can, when the reader reads, it should not be about your story, your experience. The reader should feel it is about him or her. Can you do that? What are the techniques that you have to do that? Each time when you do that, you have to ask either actual questions or rhetorical questions to get the reader inside the story. Now, for instance, whenever I speak, I ask, now for instance, if I say, I was sharing my childhood experience and my drive motivation came from a desperation than the having a bigger dream. Then if you go through this video and I ask that question, are you going through the same right now? I ask that question because the moment I ask that question, the thousands of audience members, youngsters who are watching, who has the same difficulty in life, early life that I had, could relate that. So they will live inside my story. So my speaking or my writing is not about me. Of course, I am talking about myself, but the focal point is the audience or readers. That for me, that is the prime or the overriding principles in writing or speaking or even producing visual media. If you can do that, you are a successful writer or speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Desai. I believe that was a very elaborate explanation of how to persuade your reader what you're trying to bring to them. Because sometimes when we take an article, it's not tasty enough, as we say, to read. But the methods that you mentioned are really important. And I believe the audience can get a good motivation to write their own articles with their own life experiences. Thank you very much. And the audience has been with us for over 50 minutes now, and we've been going into discussion about many, many topics. So we're going to move to the final and last question of the day, which is also an interesting question which I received from one of the members in our audience. Sir, when entering the corporate sector at a young age, what challenges should we expect?
Every step will be a challenge. I, everything will be a challenge. My friend, life is a challenge. It's not about the corporate world. How about your childhood? Did you find walking at the age of 10 months, 11 months was a challenge? What did you do? What did you do when you fell down while trying to walk? Of course, you cannot remember. But you remember, can you visualize? Go in your picture in your mind, a small kid trying to walk and falls down. What did he or she do? Get up and start walking. Again, falls down. Start trying it until they are able to run 100 meters less than 10 seconds. Talk to Usain Bolt. How was he running at the age of 10 months? He was falling all over. My dear youngsters, your life from the day you were born was full of challenges. Walking, eating, coming through the sicknesses, kindergartens, grade 5 scholarships, O-level, A-level, university. Every step of your life is a challenge. What makes you think that corporate challenge is different or bigger? Well, you have gone through a bigger challenge in life. If you have faced year 5 scholarship examination and the Sri Lankan A-level, don't talk about the rest of the challenges. Those are the biggest 2 challenges in any Sri Lankan life. But remember, whatever you do, whether you are an accountant, engineer, IT professions, marketer, administrative person, or HR, or whoever it is, remember, you are not in any business. Whether you are in IT, manufacturing, international, local, sales, whatever it is, you are in P2P business. For me, world has only one business model, P2P, person to person. Remember, your challenge in life, whether it's in personal or corporate sector, is to manage that person. That could be, if you are a HR person, you are talking to engineer or IT person for some matter. Remember, there's a human behind. Can you manage that interaction? That's called the moment of truth. Jen Carlson of Scandinavian Airline in early 80s coined this term called moment of truth. He said success of that airline is based on the interaction of particular series of interaction between the customer and the staff of the organization, Scandinavian Airline. And he said, if you can manage that moment, that's the challenge and that's the truth. In corporate sector, can you manage that moment? Remember, whether you are dealing with your boss, your subordinate, your peers, or customers, clients, suppliers, whoever it is, or media, or any stakeholder, there's a human behind it. Soft on human, hard on problem. This is what I advise in negotiation as well. Can you manage that moment with that human being? That's the challenge. You have overcome all those human interaction challenges in your life and have successfully navigated through this point. The rest, whether you're working for a Sri Lankan organization or a world-class multinational, is simple, my friend. You can do that. Manage that human being every time you interact with them. And there won't be any challenges. That itself is a challenge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa, for those wonderful words of inspiration. As I always say, our guests bring so many things for us to learn, new things for us to improvise on and think on. Thank you very much for all those wonderful messages that you brought today. And remember, our guest mentioned how important it is to love yourself and bring out the talents that you have up to the stage and achieve what you can. And on behalf of the NIBM Gavel Club, I would like to thank our amazing guest today, Toastmaster Mr. Tissa Dissanayake. Thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule to come join us today.
I must also thank the NIBM and the NIBM Gavel Club creating the ecosystem platform to share and bring expert knowledge and share with the youth, because you are not in the business of getting something, and you are in the business of activity of sharing something, giving something. For me, it took me a long time to realize the sharing is much more rewarding than receiving. And you have early stage of life, the Gavaliers have realized, and I have all respect for all those teams behind this. All the best for the Gavaliers of NIBM.
Thank you very much for all those wishes, Mr. Tissa Dissanayake. And this brings us to the end of today's session of Words of Inspiration. Thank you to everyone who joined us. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Sajani Jadma. Thank you very much, Mr. Tissa. That was a very wonderful discussion. I truly enjoyed it.